Okay, good to go.
All right, for the purpose of the recording, it's September 9th, 2021, and this is collective bargaining negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters and the Escambia County Board of County Commissioners. And I think that the county is ready to provide language for all of the outstanding collective bargaining articles, including wages.
Did we also want to do the wages, Madam? We also passed this one.
I think that's up to us.
No, right. No, right. Okay.
So I think what Crystal has passed out is language for Article 6 on discipline, language for Article 10, hours of work, and this language picks up that 72-hour period that we talked about last time we were together. Then the wages, and there's a separate sheet of paper that shows the wage rates, and it's sort of compression issue for firefighters, where they would, at the pay grade of A4 would receive increases at various defined schedules of years. Then Article 13 is the promotion procedures, which I understand you have had discussions with the chief about that language. And then there's Article 16 on miscellaneous benefits, 19 on holidays, and 20, which is out of classification. That's where we're at. Wherever you want to start, fine with us. Does anybody on the team have anything they want to say?
I'll just say that I have met at an executive session with commissioners, and everything that we proposed at our last session, I have support for.
copy of the, and you see for this one, maybe. Is it,
Yeah, it's a
For Article 20, was there a reasoning for backing that back to the, basically the old standard of, or maybe the way I'm reading it's incorrectly, but it sounded like you have to act for a full pay period to be compensated? Is that the way I'm reading that correctly?
Right, for 20, what we're proposing is just the current contract language.
Is there any particular reason for reverting back? Was there?
Yeah, I mean,
county policy.
when the team met and when we went and spoke with our clients, they wanted to keep the current practice in place.
Interesting. Hmm?
just wait on
Was it explained to y'all's clients that they were basically getting free labor? You know, we're having people act out of class. So we're saving the county money by helping and stepping up in order to not have to hire a lieutenant, but you're not gonna compensate the firemen for doing that job role. I mean, that doesn't necessarily seem very fair, in my opinion.
Well, I think we all understand how the process works. And it's pretty typical in that process for there to be some period of time that's where the person has stepped up before they kick in the money. And the
Yeah.
money goes back to the original date. I don't know of any practice where out of classification is immediate.
I did, City of Crestview. Whenever I worked there, if you acted for 1 hour, you were drove for 1 hour, and I was a fireman, I got paid as a driver. Because for that 1 hour, I'm responsible for that truck and making sure it got to where it goes, that kind of thing. So, you know,
Well,
So,
I'm not familiar
and-
with this, you might be right, yeah.
and I totally understand what you're saying, where you're saying you have to basically be in that job role for a certain length of time, but we came up with a certain length of time the last meeting, which was 24 hours. They would have to work a full shift, which I think is a happy medium between, you know, not doing it hour for hour. I get that can be kind of hard to track. But 14 days pay cycle, doing it for a full 2 weeks, county saving a significant amount of money. I think meeting in the middle at a shift is a fair trade versus trying to shoot for an hour for hour. You know? I mean, it's just,
It's not really free labor, if you, in my opinion anyway. If you go through the 14 days, you're gonna be compensated all the way back to the day you start.
But what about
It's
the,
gonna be
like,
right
Saturday,
there.
I'm stepped up to act for 24 hours.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
responsible for that truck for 24 hours, just like a lieutenant would be.
Well, we have a lot of employees that are responsible for more, that take on more responsibility in all departments.
Correct. But,
And they're working out of class, and when they reach that threshold, and they're compensated. It's, pretty consistent throughout the county, that's how it's done.
so just for consistency through the county is what you're saying.
Well, it is consistency through the county, but it's not like you're not being, you will be compensated, you will be compensated once you reach that threshold.
But for anything less than that, you're not compensated for.
Correct.
So I can
So you're not
actually
being compensated. That's kind of the point where we're getting at, because, you know, what if the firemen one day say, hey, we're not acting anymore, not doing it? Nothing says they have to. Now, we would put the county in a more financially tough spot, because then they would have to hire an officer. So that's why we're trying to put our best foot forward and say, hey, okay, we understand it can't be hour for hour. Meet us in the middle somewhere. You know, because then when it's more apt that you'll get guys that want to act and take on those roles and responsibilities, so you professionally develop them, so whenever they go to do it full time, it's not their first day.
Sure. And then,
Yeah.
if they choose not to, that's certainly their choice.
Yeah.
I've been in that situation before where I had a coworker that was working out of class, and he just said, no, I'm not doing it anymore. Okay. It's gonna get done. So somebody else stepped up and got some on-the-job training, and when they reached the threshold, and they started getting paid to do it. And that person was able to gain valuable training and promoted up, over the guy that quit doing the job, because he had more training, he was better when he quit. Now, I understand what you're saying, you're right, it's your choice, or the firefighter's choice.
Yeah.
But, it's been my experience that the job will get done.
All right.
I think the concern raised is more so that it was something that was put on the table by the county. That was not our proposal. And management offered that previously. And after conversation, I think it was understood that it was a compromise. We saw it hour for hour, obviously. That wasn't something that happened, so we were going to 24. Okay, understand. It's obviously not all encompassing, but it's definitely a strong step in the right direction of doing the right thing. And being that it was a management offer, that we really didn't have the opportunity to actually accept. I mean, it's put on the table. We didn't really reach that point of being able to actually accept it yet. 2 or 3 executive sessions are held, and it's withdrawn all of a sudden. That just seems inappropriate. And I think that's where that concern comes from. There's, I know you're only responsible for the period of time that you've been in the position, and I understand the amount of work that has gone into trying to organize everything. I just ask that you guys understand and respect where we're coming from, getting jerked around left and right on a lot of these issues. There's some proposed language changes in here that don't really need to be changed. It's just for the sake of changing it, seems like. It's not hurting anything at all. It's not costing the county any more money. It's not doing anything. Anything is kind of protecting what current practice is. Some of the proposed language changes that we have offered come directly from years of bargaining with previous administrations and reaching tentative agreements. And those have seemingly been tossed in the trash can. And some of those things comport with current practice. So that's a little frustrating. It seems as if decisions are being made from a position of being uninformed on how things actually work, or misinformation, and that's, as you can imagine, very frustrating when the decisions can potentially result in a negative impact on how we're treated, how we operate, how we function, and when it's certainly not anything to do with, oh, they're getting away with something. It's not the situation. So I'm not throwing accusations back at you specifically or the team, but I ask for your patience and understanding with our frustration in looking at some of the things that are here.
Okay, why don't we do this? It would be, I think, helpful for everybody if we went through this, and you told us, what language is added or deleted that you have an issue with. And,
Well,
why don't we start at
it's a matter more some of the last proposals that we offered you guys, at the last session, had that language built into it. And once again, the county, someone on the county side has thrown it in the trash and put offers back on the table from months ago. And that's what we're seeing in some aspects here. Running through,
Why don't we just go through this?
Okay.
You're free to, I'm not pinning you down. You're free
Understand.
to, but for the purposes of letting us know
Okay.
what language you would see come out of the contract or go into the contract that could get us to a contract. So why don't we
Okay.
start at the beginning? Why don't we start at 6 and you tell me?
Moving forward, discipline, we can accept discipline ourselves.
Okay, great. The
Hopefully that
next,
makes somebody happy.
the next is Article 10, hours of work. We added the 72 hours of leave time.
Yes.
Will count as hours worked. Is there something else in here that's bad?
Yeah.
The very last one, 10.08, took the 14-day pay cycle and struck that whole thing. Is it
Right,
just
so
redundant?
their intent is to take the 14 day. I'd say the county is generally speaking, so don't take offense.
Yeah.
The county feels that it's unfair that we're paid in that manner. And they obviously don't accept the fact or understand the fact that it's paid in that manner as a wage balancing pay. And it's very difficult to come to a compromise in terms of that wage balancing without it weighing more in our favor or weighing more in the county's favor. So it appears as if the county has chosen to just say, we're just gonna take it, and if you don't like it, you can sue us for it and see if you win, because you're going up against FLSA. Because as FLSA is defined, we are outside of those bounds. The only thing that protects it is its wage balancing, and it exists in the current MOU. That's it. So I think it's them calling our bluff and saying, we're not gonna pay you that anymore because it doesn't comport with FLSA. Now, what this team has done is offered a compromise of the 72 hours to try to help offset that. And I think that's the best that they've been allowed to offer to try to help offset that. So that's why you see it taken out of there, is because somebody up top said, screw those guys, we're not gonna pay what we've been paying and what we've been doing business. Moving forward, I don't like the non-exempt bargaining unit members assigned to 24-hour shifts. Bargaining unit members are bargaining unit members. We're mixing in HR classifications with whether you're a union member or not, and this is specifically related to an FLSA situation that's going on, and they're two different situations. The FLSA matter pertaining to the line battalion chiefs has absolutely zero to do with the fact that they are bargaining unit members, and this is being tied together, and I feel that's inappropriate.
Okay, tell me where that's at.
10.01.
Okay, which paragraph?
So the first paragraph is fine, the second paragraph, all non-exempt bargaining unit members assigned to 24, that part.
All right, so how I read that is, it doesn't say that a bargaining unit member, any particular bargaining unit member, is exempt or non-exempt from the FLSA. But if one is.
Well, let's strike the the fourth line then. That would be the one that we have really the issue with.
And fourth line is all
Fourth paragraph there.
bargaining unit members who are exempt. Is that what you're saying? Who are exempt from the overtime provisions of the FLSA?
In my opinion, it should read, bargaining unit members assigned to 24-hour shifts will be paid overtime at a rate of 1.5 times the regular rate of pay for hours worked over 106 during a 14-day work period. All bargaining unit members assigned to 9-hour shifts will be paid at a rate of 1.5 times their regular rate of pay for hours worked over 45 hours each week during a 14-day work period. That's it. That's really all that should say, and it encompasses everything that needs to be said. I see that, the 72-hour portion in there. That's great. I would like the opportunity to kind of maybe talk through how that, the interpretation of how that's applied, I guess. I think this is easy enough to understand, but I think as far as the actual, it being applied and working, it's maybe something that can be dealt with the fire administration, but the logistics of it could be a little bit complex. Just have to figure out how that would actually work.
Okay.
I think we all understand the intent of it, the purpose
Yeah.
of it, but.
Okay. Anything else about 10 that is an issue?
Yeah, the callback time. That's fine there. I would like I proposed in ABC, I believe it was, in the previous, I included that was from the tentative agreement. And all it does is memorialize what current and past practice has been in regard to payment for our annual medical physicals, fitness assessments, and then that's what it's done. So it's not a new form of pay, it's not, an additional cost or anything like that. It's current practice. And the reason that it's there is because we've had so many issues in the past with turnover within administration. People, whoever's in charge of, has any hand in payroll or anything like that, they don't understand those things sometimes, and paychecks get mistakes are made. And it's much easier that if we can refer to that language and say, here, this is why this note is on this timesheet, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, yeah, there it is right there, no problem.
Okay, so are you talking about language that's not on this sheet of paper but you want added? Or is there something on this sheet of paper?
Correct. Like I said, Mike, our proposals get thrown in the trash can and we get given an entirely different copy. And this has been going on for years now. Every time you don't bring a piece of paper forward and somebody else from the county brings it forward, this is what happens. And I understand that, I guess you guys have the right to do that as a counter proposal, but it makes it incredibly difficult to go back and forth over language. So that's why I gave you guys that paperwork last time, those proposals, so you can see it all put together.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have a copy of that or not. If not, I'm happy to send it to you, or I can read through it if you like. If you want to just kind of talk through it, that's fine.
Either way. However you want to do it, or I can go find it on a break. It's up. We have it. Okay. Well, look, while
It's essentially 10.02. What you have to post here on this piece of paper is fine. What would be added to 10.02, that first paragraph there, at the end of it, participation in mandatory health and wellness screenings and required certification or recertification shall be paid as follows. A, annual medical physicals shall be compensated with 2 hours pay for the first day and 1 hour pay for the second day. B, annual fitness assessments shall be compensated with 2 hours pay if conducted while off duty. C, if the time period exceeds the stated allotments in A and B, accrual of standard hourly increments shall apply.
Good.
That's it, and that's, like I said, it's been the practice.
And that's the practice, okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
All right.
I'm not sure why, so moving to 10.03,
Yeah.
maybe it's just because it's assumed, but removing, in the first sentence there, overtime shall be offered to all collective bargaining members based on rosters for officers, one for firefighters, EMTs, one for firefighter medics, maintained by the county. I mean, we work on rosters, that's fine, if that's understood. My concern would be, language that reinforces rank for rank overtime and the importance of that should be maintained. And that type of language helps to reinforce that intent. That's our position.
So you would have one
We-
for officers, one for firefighters, EMTs, and one for firefighter paramedics restored.
It's one of those things, if it's not broke, don't fix it, you know?
All right,
Get through there. You say something, go ahead.
So under 10.04,
This is all.
current proposal basically kind of took out the collective bargaining unit members who attend class or have pre-scheduled position appointments as conflict with mandatory overtime may be excused from working overtime with the prior approval of the fire chief and excused bargaining unit member name will remain at the top of the mandatory overtime list for his or her respective shift. Unless I'm missing something here. So there's no way, once you're mandatory, you're mandatory. Is that how I'm reading that? There's no exclusion.
You could be excused for pre-scheduled way.
How are you supposed to be excused? What are the criteria based on that? Is it just, hey chief, I can't mandatory today, I
No,
got
for the way collective bargaining unit members who are attending or have pre-scheduled appointments. In C.
I'm missing something.
it's right, it's at C. 10.
Okay, that's what I was at,
Okay.
missing it, that's just make sure, so.
And there's no bias. In the last proposal, I offered that all mandatory overtime hours would be worked or be paid out at time and a half, regardless of, basically, that's just what they would be paid at because of the inconvenience associated with mandatory overtime. That obviously been removed, I guess, because that something just wasn't. Well, let me ask this, did you have an opportunity to actually go through and read what was proposed?
I read the latest, through the contract, I read through the latest proposal.
With our proposal or
What Kristen forwarded us.
following the last negotiations? Okay, so that means that everything that I provided you guys in writing that day, you didn't have an opportunity to go through and read?
Probably not.
Okay. So, I think it's, I don't wanna make a baseless accusation, but it sounds as if those proposals were received and one person reviewed them and probably made adjustments based off of verbal conversation, I would imagine, or off of previous direction received. That could be the case too. But then what was disseminated back to each of you was something different. And this bargaining team for the county did not truly review what we put on the table, is what it sounds like.
It's been my experience that through the last session we had, and through the session with other units, other unions, is that proposals go back and forth,
Mhm.
and there's discussion. And then there's either tentative agreement or there's not. And then Kristen goes back and puts the minutes together of the session and forwards those minutes and those actions to the TAs or the not TAs and with the latest information. So if something's put across the table and it's discussed and it's not agreed to, well, it certainly doesn't mean that it wasn't considered, it just means it wasn't agreed to at that point in time. So that's,
Well, and sure, I respect that. There wasn't something that was discussed, or at least we didn't receive the feedback, and I guess that's all. Is that, no, we did consider that, it was discussed, calculated, whatever we did. We're not interested in doing that. Okay. That at least lets me know that you guys discussed it, and it wasn't just ripped out of there and tossed.
so we're here today, we're happy to discuss. Listen.
Well, then, yeah, I mean, I would like to, like I said, the consideration of that, mandatory overtime is not something that's used a great deal. We've experienced it a little more here recently, but I would hope with the completion of this contract, with the adjustment in the starting pay, kind of the whole plan coming to fruition, we're able to recruit more folks, the potential or opportunities for that mandatory would subside back to what they used to be an incredibly rare situation. But in the event it does happen, I feel that is fair to the employee. I understand that it is overtime already, and in most situations, that's fine, how that would work. Could be a situation to where the individual could be in a short cycle, and so the hours worked, those specific mandatory hours worked that are being taken from family or wherever they go home, that was the consideration.
So, just from my understanding, when it's mandatory overtime, how is it compensated now?
It would be compensated at time and a half, but understand, like, with our pay cycles, you have a long cycle of 120 hours, and we have a short cycle of 96, where we don't meet the 106 threshold, which earns overtime. I can work 105 hours in a week or in a 2-week cycle, and it's all straight time for me, versus, obviously a 40-hour employee is in overtime at that point.
So we're on a short cycle, mandatory overtime, the time and a half doesn't kick into another 106.
Yes, sir. That's correct. That was a consideration.
Okay.
All right, wages, I would like to put, all right, it's 12.04, eligible bargaining about the longevity pay. I would like to retain that language simply because we do have existing staff or existing members that received the longevity pay from back before, I don't know, when was that taken away or frozen out?
2009.
Yeah, so we do have some folks that receive that, and I would really, that needs to be maintained. So we have
So
something
we're
to fall back
grandfathering
on.
those people in.
Well, they're already grandfathered in, right?
Well, yes, sir, they are. My concern would be 5 years from now, we're dealing with entirely different staff, and they go through and audit or clean things up. It doesn't say we have to pay you longevity pay at all. Well, I'm grandfathered in. Well, there's nobody here that says that. And maybe you see that as unrealistic, but it's a concern, and I don't see where that language is harmful to the county, because all it does is memorialize that those individuals that received it previously are grandfathered.
Well, they were, when it was, whatever percentage you were at.
It's Frozen.
So it's frozen.
Yes, sir.
And you continue to get that percentage.
Right, absolutely. So again, that's just one of those things that I don't see where it's doing any harm to just hold on to the language that's there. If nothing else, those folks that have been here for a long time know that's there, and it provides them a sense of security. You know, and if we can offer that, that's a good thing.
Okay. All right, we got that.
Okay.
Anything else at 12?
Potentially, let's see. Okay. I know we've had a lot of conversation about the EMT stuff. Are we on the same page with that? Or, I understand, and we are supportive that if the county's direction forward is that we want to bring everybody to that standard. Awesome, outstanding. That's a higher level of service that we provide.
Okay.
That comes at a cost. And just want to make sure.
Some of that's been discussed, and there may need to be language in there that clarifies some of that, because 2-year period may not be, if classes aren't available, or we're gonna, it probably should be.
I trust that's a conversation that you guys can have, and if we need to do, something to adjust that, then obviously I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I think it's a level of service we want to provide, but I don't know about 2 years is a hard date to get done right now with
Yeah.
everything that's going on and classes and everything that's going on. So to pigeonhole us and put us on a 2-year time frame is going to be kind of.
Where I'm at with that is if agreeing to this gets us moving forward, great, that's fine. But I do foresee the potential need to make an adjustment there.
All right, so how do we do that? Do we change?
Well, no, it can just certainly be, I mean, unless they have something they want to offer, we can just do an MOU after the fact. If once they have the opportunity to actually sit down and spend some hard time on that and make some real projections on when it would be feasible to allow those things to happen, then we can reevaluate it, and if there's a need for an MOU or something at that point, I feel like we could execute that. And I think it really just be more of a timeline situation rather than anything else.
So instead of 2 years, you want language that says?
You gotta ask them, Mike, that's on them.
Okay.
Couldn't we say something like at the direction of the fire chief, because you would understand what they've been through in the 2 years and know that they couldn't have made the classes or whatever? Could we put something that's a little flexible for you?
Well, I think that's probably what it needs, is something that says that, because we're requiring it. If we
Yeah.
can't provide them the classes that we can.
Then you'll know
We
the
could roll- we could
circumstances
roll
and you
through.
should.
Is everybody, I'm just asking this question, I'm not proposing it. Would everybody be comfortable with putting 2 words at the end of that sentence that would suggest that, like, if possible or if practical?
So, y'all,
I'd be okay with it.
I think it gives us the option of be able to work it through. I think we're relying on outside.
And good
The way I
faith,
see
we'll try to
it,
get it
that's
done.
something that's gonna have to be a pretty significant coordinated effort
Yeah.
for administration, so I think
Okay?
I'm good with it. This was a situation where I wanted there to be complete transparency of how we were interpreting that language, and to let it be on the record that we were supportive of increasing that level of service. We just understand that what comes with it.
The logistics with it and everything, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate
Yes,
that.
sir.
Where this was.
The only thing that I don't like about that is I want concrete, because there has to be a deadline. So I would rather either do 3 years, considering that we're in a pandemic right now.
What's the terms of the contract? What's the
3 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
we'll use like
Because
duration of the
then
contract?
If it's a
By
requirement.
the end of the duration of the
only-
contract.
Or only agreed, then the requirement of it is kind of gets thrown out the door. That's like
The logistic
big
problem is that
I
the
like
amount of
agree.
personnel we're
This
talking
is
about
requirement.
is,
If-
that's a substantial period of
So
time
it's
off
just-
away from work. And I think there's we talked about some ideas to, expedite those things, but with our current staffing levels,
and then
with the
it's-
Tons of mandatory.
unknown
The duration of the contract.
stability of the budget, I guess, or what the future of the budget will actually entail, because we're not there yet, you know.
From the beginning,
Um,
yeah.
There are some unknowns, and I would say.
If you're on a 30-year contract.
Reasonably, you're probably a year from just the logistics side of trying to work through some things. Would you agree with that?
With numbers, it's gonna be small numbers. Within here.
Yeah, I mean, just get, like I said, the logistics aspect of, all right, here's the plan, here's what we can do reasonably and move forward. It'd be some time, so I don't want one of my guys coming waving this thing at me saying, it's been 2 years and I didn't get EMT and it's only, you know, that's,
All right,
I don't want that.
can
But
say-
I like the language, I do like the language, I'm supportive of the language. And that's why I say that I'm good with this and just let's understand whatever we need to do moving forward. If we need to do an MOU or something like that to adjust timeline, then absolutely open to that. We're sitting here talking about it, I want to make sure we're all on the same page, that's all.
Yeah. The suggestion was made that we use, instead of 2 years, by the end of the term of this collective bargaining agreement. Is that language that's better for everybody?
Well, I don't want that guy coming in on year 3, and now he's got a year by the language to get it done by the end, you know what I'm
Well,
saying?
no, that's all firefighters are hired on or after the effective date of this agreement required to obtain certification EMT in the state of Florida within 2 years of the date of hire. So that's the guy coming in,
Yeah,
so that
That's
covers
the guy
that.
coming in, but then you got a chunk of folks that are existing.
yeah, exactly.
So we're just talking about existing with the terms of the contract.
Right.
So, I mean, and like I said, it's something as easy as MOU. If it's, hey, this is not feasible, we can go back to it, but it gives her concrete, this is our
Yeah.
term of contract, gives you a little bit more flexibility and time to evaluate.
Whatever you guys are comfortable with. You can change it 3 years or manipulate that. That's fine.
All right,
Okay, you said you had something to be.
Yeah, you have, in part A there under EMT, it says, first sentence, any bargaining unit member who holds a certification EMT basic state of Florida and is approved by the medical director shall receive an additional $1,500 annually. You go down to paramedic, it goes, are assigned to perform ALS service on a regular basis may receive. That whole may part is where I have an issue. Anything that says may should say shall, just like it does in the EMT.
That was also something that was discussed in previous sessions as well, and to my recollection, that was changed back to shall. But this is what's on the table today, so.
okay. All right, well, I understand that point. What's next on wages?
Okay.
No.
Hold on.
We're still working on something. Morris, station.
Yeah, go, yeah, this is, yeah, with wages, going back to the
So the next part of that, I thought we had kind of got away from it of saying are assigned to perform ALS services on a regular basis. Just those that are within the 24th or the 30 or 36, however it brings out. If you're approved by the medical director at the ALS level to provide those services, you'll get it whether you're assigned or not, because even if I'm on a BLS unit and that ambulance shows up, now I can become a paramedic and perform those services. I just don't have the tools available on the fire engine at that point in time. It may be a BLS ambulance that shows up and I have to get on. So you're saying that I won't be compensated if I'm not assigned to an ALS station, even though I'm providing those services still. But as long as I mean, that's why the numbers were put there to cap it, so we don't have 60 people that have medics. It's a capped number.
Okay, I understand that point.
And we've had numerous situations where a paramedic is working on a BLS truck for whatever reason, whether it's on overtime or it's assigned there for the time being, who the scene dictates, the situation dictates the use of their ALS capabilities. And have numerous situations of that. You obviously don't want to run into a situation where, hey, I need you to be a paramedic right now, and you're not paying me to be a paramedic right now. You know, I know that sounds really brash, but you hold the certification to earn additional compensation for that skill level. And then that's been, obviously, that's current practice anyway. Again, this appears to be another draft from several months ago now. So going the rest of wages, the incentive pays that were previously offered, are those on a different sheet of paper, or have they been removed? Were they pulled from the table?
Ask that question again, I'm sorry.
The previous incentive pays that were offered, have those been pulled from the table, or are they just missing from somewhere?
I'm gonna have to ask that question in the call.
Okay. Well, let me just, so we can move forward.
Yeah.
Do one of you still have a copy of the proposed wages we offered last
Right
night?
here. Yeah.
You have those, okay. Would you please review that? Now, in terms of the adjustments to the paramedic, I know their previous offer had the paramedic pay stepping up over the years of the contract. If that's something that the county has removed, okay. Again, there seems to be these little tidbits that have been previously offered by management that are being pulled back off the table. That's a little bit of a kick in the head, because obviously some of these things have been discussed with membership, and trying to create buy-in with membership of what's being offered. We're working hard on this just like you guys are working hard on this, right? And when I gotta go back and say, hey, everything we talked about except this, they pulled this, that back, it's why? Why offer it if you're just gonna pull it back off the table? So, if it's an oversight, no problem, cool. Let's look at that other offer. We built in the incentive pays in that proposal.
Were they agreed to? Did y'all talk about it? Did y'all, was it a TA?
No, it wasn't a TA. They were discussed over the course of a couple sessions before you assumed that position. To my knowledge, they were never pulled back, or anything like that. So
So how did the discussion go when y'all discussed it?
what was offered by the county, and so we were supportive of it. There were some things that needed some clarification. I mean, if you want to go through it, the EMT and medic thing was, as stated. Now, I did add, in that last proposal, I put longevity incentive pay, which we discussed at our last session. And then more or less you guys came back with a 246 thing. So that's fine. But it states that incentive pays excluding education incentive and medical incentive will be capped at $200. But you have medical incentive pay for EMT and paramedic. You have education incentive pay, which that just memorializes the money that can be obtained or earned from the state for having a degree. Career development pay, that's associated with the other special certifications, and the special assignment pay. There was a couple areas where there were some questions of how that would be applied, like special assignment pay, how it would be applied. And we had conversations with Chief Catchball, there's been numerous conversations and trying to work those details out. And based off of those conversations I've had, I put it into writing and submitted it to you for your consideration. With all due respect, if you're gonna play the card of, well, do you have a tentative agreement? I've got a stack of tentative agreements here that have been thrown in the trash by the county, and they were previously signed by the county. So I'm trying to be open-minded as far as, hey, we understand the work you did a few years ago with this other team. We have some different direction now, so this is the offer that we're putting on the table. And I'm trying to swallow that pill as best as I can when I'm sitting here with something in my hand that's signed. It's kind of like the 14 hours of built-in overtime. I've had more arguments about that and debates about it, the merits of it, and how it's illegal and wrong and all this other crap. And it's like, where do you get this from? This piece of paper right here that's signed by your labor attorney that you pay a buttload of money to is the senior ranking bargaining member for the county. He's the OG. He's the only one left that we've been dealing with. It's signed right here. Are you really not going to honor that? Oh, well, we didn't have that. Well, that's not my fault. You know, thank God I held onto the piece of paper because otherwise we'd really be screwed.
Well, I'm not
You-
here to
you
play
know,
games.
I'm not saying
here to
you
play
are.
games with you.
I'm not saying you
I'm here
are.
to bargain, here to negotiate, and we're gonna work hard, we're gonna get through it. But I'm not a game player.
I'm not trying to play games
I'm
with
gonna
you
be here to be
either.
serious. Now, we can TA everything we want to TA, but we all know that nothing.
So are you thinking-
We all know that nothing's gonna be ratified until the board votes to ratify it.
I understand that.
And we'll go back and forth, maybe we'll agree on some things, maybe we won't.
So
That's negotiation.
okay, so then don't play games with me. Did
I'm
the
not
incentive
playing
pays
games
get
with you.
pulled?
I'm not
Did they
playing-
get pulled from the
I
table?
don't know
Yes or
what
no?
happened with it. I don't know what happened with it, Nick, I wasn't here.
I'll get you that.
You were here, you tell
you
me what
answer?
happened with it.
No, but I will.
I don't get to go to the executive session, Mr. Marino.
Well, I wasn't in those
And
particular sessions
unfortunately-
either, Nick.
What about
I
the-
imagine
okay,
that
so-
probably got lost in the transition when Jana left and stuff. I think it probably got
It was at the
dropped
last,
from conversation at that point.
it was at
so.
the last session where.
We discussed it at the last session. So you can't say you didn't know.
We did not discuss that paper at the last session.
Are you
Not that-
serious?
Not that I recall. Did we? If we did, if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm
I
wrong.
don't remember.
And that's
having
fine.
a
I know you got a lot on your
conversation.
plate. I know you're juggling a lot of things. And if you don't remember, you don't remember, okay. The last thing I've tried to do is pull some crap. I have been very transparent, very open, very honest. To the point I've taken shots from my membership of, why don't we put this in? Why don't we put this in? It's a better practice to be upfront, look people in the eye and say, this is what we're here to do. This is what we're after. And I'm not getting that back from the county. Now, I appreciate you trying to have that stance and be straightforward, straight up, but you'll have to forgive me if I'm a little bitter about the last several years of game playing.
Well, I can't help
This
those
was
things.
absolutely
If you
discussed.
want to pass it across the table, pass it across the table.
I passed it last time.
What, you wanna do it again? You wanna do it again? Do it again.
Second caucus. We'll come
No,
back to it.
you can have a copy of it right there. It's right there. If you want a digital copy, I'll email it to you. I'm happy to do that.
We're happy.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. This information has been shared, it was distributed, and it got thrown in the trash by somebody, and we get back a crap offer, is what we get back.
Well, don't agree to it then.
We'll work through it as the day goes on. That's what we're here to do, is work through it. But you sitting there telling me you're not a game player. Now, if you got bad information, 'cause I know that happens sometimes. Sometimes
I'm being
people leave
straight
things out, they don't
with
give you the
you.
tools you need to be successful. I know that stuff happens. I know you get left hung out to dry sometimes, we all do. And if that's what happened, then fine, no problem. Say, hey man, I got it, I don't remember this. Let's talk about it and we'll see what's
I
happening.
think that's
What it
I
appears to
think
be
that's what I
though,
just
that
said.
this has been
Is that
discussed.
not what I just said?
This is fine.
We have.
My concern is you're gonna take that as a new proposal, which messes with wages, it messes with pay, it messes with the money, and you're gonna need to go back to those commissioners and ask for it. And we, by God, don't have time for that. This is supposed to have been worked out and supposed to have been done. That's playing games. That's playing games and it's unnecessary, it's completely uncalled for.
Not by me.
Then who's playing the games? Just tell me that.
I've stepped into this situation, I've stepped into this session, I've come to the last session in good faith. I'm working hard, we're all working hard. You can pound the table, lose your cool, I don't care. But I don't care. If you want us to talk about it, we'll talk about it. It don't mean I'm gonna agree to it, but we'll talk about it.
So, Nick, I have the language. I didn't type this up. I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but we'll take a caucus when we take a caucus, and I'll come back and give you the answer, okay?
Thank you. Excuse me for getting frustrated. I've been the calm one at the table when the rest of them are questioning and pushing and pressing on things or having attitude. And I'm not saying you're intentionally doing it, so I apologize for coming off that way at you. Somebody is. Somebody is responsible for manipulating things and playing games. You'll have to excuse the frustration that comes with that.
I understand.
Okay. So, our next article up is promotional procedures. And from what I understand, we can move on from that.
No,
because-
sir, we can't. Line 1, 1301, under number 1, or equivalent experience, needs to be stricken. That's not, in our stance is that's not negotiable. Period, a minimum of 5 years continuous employment as a full-time firefighter with the Escambia County Fire Rescue. The addition of, completed the required training for driver operators defined by ECFR training division for a minimum of 2 years, that's perfect. If the new fire chief has a different stance on that equivalent experience part, please share that with us, but I feel like that's incredibly inappropriate, and I'll call for it at that level.
Nick, I'm sorry, that's what I had in my notes, so from what we've discussed, your equivalent experience was to capture the ability to pull the old ones that may or may not have the current stuff.
No, sir, that line specifically, now as far as the classes, no, we're in complete agreement. I'm referring to specifically right there at the top, the tenure required to be eligible to promote is what I'm
That's
referring
mine, I
to.
added that in, out of my notes.
Yeah, that was actually proposed maybe 2 years ago, and
Right.
we went back and forth on that. Basically, it was, well, you can have an officer from somebody else or a firefighter from somebody else, and then they walk in the door able to test, and they don't, what does that say to the guys that have been here for 5 years? So that's why we kind of went around 2 years ago, and that was struck.
That would be the first line of all of them. I went back off of my notes and tried to capture the piece we had talked about with the, making sure we weren't messing up the 40, 45 hour.
I
New
get
Florida certification.
No, the class, right, that part, the equivalent experience, that all fits and makes sense.
Okay,
Captain.
all right, we got that cleared up.
Yeah, I would just ask to look at that, because even at the captain rank, and I would imagine the battalion chief's the same
Yeah,
way.
it's all
What do you
three
consider
first.
equivalent, right? So, you're just referencing the difference between the 40 or 45-hour classes, stuff like that?
Either basically a grandfathered person or
Okay,
a New Florida certified one, was trying to capture that.
awesome, okay, thank you.
And the only other change, just that we had discussed, would be for the battalion chiefs was the 3 years as a lieutenant or 2 years as a captain, so we capture if someone promotes the way we currently, where they could go from up or into a captain's role, that we're not missing, they can catch it either way. Like, so if they are a captain, they can catch the battalion, if they are a lieutenant, they can, they have to be.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, because that was kind of foreseeable issue with build out.
Correct.
Some generational issues. Okay.
Okay, so that's 13. Is there anything else on 13?
I know we discussed before, 16, 06. We had previously proposed language that would fall, I guess, after D there. Bargaining unit battalion chiefs shall be provided today on staff vehicle that shall be properly equipped, be utilized while on duty, and staff vehicle that will be utilized for recall purposes only. Would like that to be considered to add back in. Been practiced since our existence. I think it's understood. I don't know if there's a concern associated that would, I don't know, present an issue if their staff vehicle went down for service or something like that, and I think that's understood. It's been understood for 21 years now that we do the best we can with the equipment we have. So I don't know if that's what the concern is there, but our intent behind that is it, again, memorializes current past practice. The one about the washing machines, I don't know why that's such a big rub all of a sudden against current past practice. We also understand that it's very important to have the ability to launder uniforms, especially when you're in a firehouse for 24 hours. In combination firehouses, that those laundry washing machines and dryers are utilized by career and volunteer staff. It's understood that sometimes those things break, and we may be without a washing machine for a few days until facilities can get to it. Nobody's raising Cain, and you go, let's roll the quarters, go to the laundromat, or nothing crazy like that. It's just, again, it memorializes current past practice.
Well, the reason that we didn't put it in here, we thought that was more appropriate for the SOGs, and the chief is working on putting something together for that. I would suggest maybe that's where the vehicle should go also. You can put that in the SOG. So you will have it written.
Thank you.
And part of your, but not, it's not appropriate here, we didn't think. I didn't think.
Thank you.
Good for that one. Snap, snap.
Holidays looks like what we discussed last time.
And Nick,
Ma'am.
I just want to point out, Kristen changed the wording a little bit, but she accidentally left one of the words in. It would be administrative leave. Administrative leave is just too difficult to track. That would have to be done manually, done by your department, which leaves way too much room for error.
Okay.
What we would do is upon ratification, if this goes in, you're gonna get a holiday bank anyways. We would put those hours in your holiday bank. You can see them, you would use them, they're there, and then they would follow the holiday policy. Oh, we can't hear you, Kristen.
Hold on,
Hang on,
Kristen.
Zach.
Just the computer, you gotta change the audio to the TV.
She sent a revised version.
Okay.
Okay. So how, I think you said we have a holiday bank. I guess just trying to understand that as far as when holidays
So
come
under
around, we.
1902, where it says holiday pay may be banked in accordance with current BCC policy,
Mhm.
you would basically have a bank. So when holidays come around, you will have a holiday.
It'd be just like a comp bank, but a separate bank, right?
Correct.
So you'll have
Oh.
annual
Yeah.
leave, sick leave, comp leave, holiday leave.
Yep. And so basically,
So that's gonna be
right now-
different than what we had in mind as far as BCC policy. Because you're gonna, is your interpretation of that becomes banked is, well, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Basically, yeah, no, if you work on a holiday, your BCC policy is you're gonna get your regular pay, and then you can essentially choose to bank or get paid that double pay, essentially. So
Gotcha.
a lot of people choose to bank that in order to take time off.
Move their holiday
Of
to a
course,
different.
per the policy, it does get paid out every fiscal year at the end of every fiscal year.
So, on our application, basically, we would start out with 24 in that
9
vein.
hours, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then you can see it, it's something that's tangible to you and easier for us to track.
No problem. All right. If you would, please bear with me just a minute on this one. Sorry. Thank you. This one, what I was looking at is that we have a excuse me, tentative agreement that, again, is older, it's from 2018. And the change to the language in there was done to capture some situations that had come up where we had some acting officers who met a 14-day period, but they weren't filling, it wasn't because, like I took off for 2 weeks and they were moving up to fill solely my spot. It was to fill numerous vacancies like per day. So this, day one, they're stepping up at their own station. Day two, they're getting pulled to go to this station, but they end up acting as a company officer for that 14-day period. And we had a little bit of an issue initially when that happened. There was a few occurrences of that taking place. And Chief Williams was there at the time, and we had discussed that. Hey, here's what's going on. Where do we stand on this? And so we worked. He agreed. HR at the time agreed that we would make this change to the language that would, again, just kind of spell it out simply. So in payroll, not payroll, sorry, but our side of the house on payroll, it was understood what the intent was. I think as long as we're on the same page, the language that's provided here is fine. I know Kristen had mentioned in previous sessions months ago that she felt like what was there was just too wordy. And I understand that, but I also understand that sometimes really spelling things out, it makes it simpler. Sometimes it's easier for more of the lay person to understand. I'm not a legal expert by any means, but for firefighters, sometimes it's easier if it's just really spelled out very clearly. So it's a working document. It's not perceived to be a bunch of legalese that people don't really understand. So
Kristen just sent us the 218 to TA, so we can discuss that.
what'd you say?
Kristen just sent it to us.
Okay.
For those of us who were not
like
here in
June 15th?
2018, yeah. Yes,
So,
yes, June 15th, but we haven't.
all right. What you got?
Anything? Who knows?
It's kind of now and everything. We're gonna take a break and talk, so. They've got a copy of it, so. And again, that's not, it's not pulling anything, it's not adding extra pay or anything like that. That language, captures the intent, I guess, the board direction that we want to stick with the 14-day qualifying period. It maintains that, it just specifies and makes it a lot more clear that if a person does hit that 14 days in a row, it's just not in a vacant, or what the terminology, the way vacancy is defined by the county is that it's a person on extended leave, or they're out for injury, or whatever the situation is. But again, it was just kind of unforeseeable, I think, and then all of a sudden a situation comes up where you got people, working 14, 21 days in an active capacity, but it didn't technically meet the definition of a vacancy with the county. It was multiple temporary vacancies, so it just spells that out. That's all.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Why don't we take the comments? All right, thanks for that opportunity to caucus. I'm going to, because I didn't want to hold everybody up while we attempted to type out changes in the legislative format, I'm just going to verbally respond to each of the issues that you raised on the remaining articles. So I'm going to go through them. 6 is good to go. T8. 10, the 72 hours sounds like it's going to work. We are going to clarify 10.01. We want to work on that language for 10.01. Going down to 10.02, you proposed language on, I guess, how much time you get to have.
The 2 hour for the physical.
2 hours for the
First day,
physical.
1 hour second.
1 hour second. We'll restore that language and put that in the contract. 10.3, when you're ready.
Sir.
10.3,
Yes, sir.
you asked us to restore, you thought for clarification purposes it was good to restore the phrase, 1 for officers, 1 for firefighters, EMTs, and 1 for firefighter paramedics. We'll do that. There was a question about 10.04, but I think we satisfied it by looking at the language of C, 10.04C. So I think that's 10. Wages. We talked about 12.05 supplemental pay for EMTs. Now let me go back, restore, because I didn't realize this how it's organized. We are willing to restore the language, put language in the collective bargaining agreement, recognizing that there are members of the collective bargaining agreement that are grandfathered in for longevity pay, so that that's captured. Supplemental pay. Under the EMT, there was a discussion about the language that says within 2 years of the date of hire. I think we should say within the term of this contract, if practical. Gives everybody a little room. 1205 supplemental pay paramedic. You asked if we would strike and are assigned to perform ALS service on a regular basis may. We'll go ahead and strike that language. You asked us to put into that sentence, before the word receive, the word shall. We'll do that. That's wages. Wait, that's not wages. It's something else. With regard to the other incentive pays, there were three. There was an education, a professional certification, and a special assignment pay. We're willing to put into the contract that language for education. We're willing to put in the contract that language for special assignment pay. So the only difference is professional certification incentive. And I know that that was put on the table at one point before, but we would just like to point out that the wage increase that we put on the table today is greater than what was put on the table back then. So it was almost offered as an alternative to the fact that we weren't making
Well,
those
not,
wage increases.
not across the board though. That's the concern, is it doesn't incentivize the entire membership for further certification and education that can be offered. That's just
Well,
something we'll in consideration there as well.
okay.
Okay. So the education, which is really a capturing of current practice, because that's
Yes.
the state funding.
Yep.
And then the special assignment is that, as far as, I guess, what you reviewed, what was the written language, is that what you're looking at being agreeable to?
Yep, the last one.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Promotion 13, you asked to strike or equivalent experience as it appears in 3 places. I think lieutenant captain and chief, if I'm correct. We're willing to strike that phrase from those 3 places in promotion. I think that was the only issue that I heard in promotion. I might be wrong about that, but that's takes care of promotion. Article 16, miscellaneous benefits. And here I thought the issue was the language that wasn't the contract on washer dryers, the language that wasn't the contract on battalion chiefs, and the use of a vehicle, and we are agreeing to put that into our policies. So we do a second, which didn't mean, what is it?
SOGs.
What does an SOG mean?
Standard of
Operating
guidance.
guideline.
Oh, okay.
Operating.
So that'll exist, we're
Use SOPs.
we're committing to the fact that that will exist in writing
Okay.
and be an obligation. Holiday pay, we made that change to, for the 14th, we're resolving the 14th holiday for this year by granting 24 hours into the holiday bank. And Nikki explained that, that's something that I understand. Article 20, out of classification pay, what I heard was that the, going to the status quo is okay, but you wanted 2 changes to the status quo. You wanted to have 14-day period or 5 shifts, which I guess, whichever shorter. And you wanted to have language that said that it's clarified that when you're stepping up out of classification for the 14 days or these 5 shifts, it doesn't mean you're locked into one person's vacancy, but it's any work, it's any of the shifts. So if one captain was out and you stepped up into that captain for 4 days, and then you took over for another captain that's over here for 4 days, and then they would all be cumulative. So we can clarify that. I think we have to rewrite the duration of the agreement article because it doesn't say anything. So that's the ball of wax, unless there's any, and then there's this. that we put on the table tonight.
The scale, the,
I
yeah,
think,
do you feel like it would be your intent as far as the duration to just memorialize annual openers? Like, kind of with the previous language?
I think we have to do that.
I would agree, but, okay, so as far as where we currently are, and you say, what is your intent at this point? If we're agreeable at this point, where do we go?
We type it up in TA and we ratify. We get it in place as quick as possible.
When, Mr. Moran, when would this pay go in effect? We do kind of the MOU thing like the other bargaining units were offered, where it went into effect immediately, and, or the upcoming pay cycle, or would it require ratification from the board
It was
first?
going to require ratification from the board. And then, so I think, I think Nikki said it's first full pay period after ratification or something. I have to clarify the calendar.
Okay.
We feel confident that this will be ratified.
I would hope so. At this point.
Yeah, no, I mean.
No, and I mean, just curious there, I know, obviously I would expect, EMS or transit or anybody else to, to reach an agreement in April or something and have to wait till October before those things went into effect. I think that was very fair of the county to go ahead and put those pay changes in effect. I would just look for the same thing there,
Yeah.
And we're obviously talking about a much shorter time frame. But there's a difference between taking effect October 1 versus the soonest.
Well, I guess my goal is to get into effect just as quickly as we possibly can.
Would it be the goal to try to get it on the agenda for next week's meeting, ratified?
If your membership ratifies it.
Sure. If I get it back to you.
I'll certainly make every effort I could.
You would, was it like Tuesday, the cutoff day typically?
Well, it's already, the cutoff's already come and gone, it's last Friday. But,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
but I'm willing to work.
Could it be brought as an add-on?
That's what I'm saying, I'm willing to,
All we can do is try to put it on there. Okay?
I mean, we got PVA, their membership just ratified their contract, and I'm gonna try to get theirs Thursday, or next Thursday.
If we're able to get it on this upcoming and get it ratified on Thursday, the pay cycle ends on the 18th. So another full cycle would go into effect. That's when our pay would start, would be
I believe that's correct. I was going to rely on Nikki to verify it, but I believe you're correct.
Okay. I have two other questions I'd like to ask is, one, it was a brief discussion in the last session, Harrison brought up about portal.
That's gonna be under 10.06, we're adding that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that. We're gonna add language.
That's being added under 10.06, portal and then deployment, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing and the same thing in 10, I know you said you kind of wanted to rework that 10.01.
Yeah,
Can we discuss that a little bit, or,
Yeah.
it's our position, that the bargaining unit does not currently have exempt members. However, it appears the county has a different stance on that, and that's,
well, I think the county wants to have language in the event that there is an exempt position in the bargaining.
why, if I could get some assurances that current bargaining unit members are not exempt or are not gonna be put on, my interpretation of that language would have them essentially switched over to salary, where their additional hours worked would be, you're changing current practice where they're not even paid straight time for those extra hours. So that's a very substantial change to their working conditions and their pay, that I'm sorry, but there's no way we could agree to that at all. I mean, that's,
Well, the only thing that I can plot the county in is what might happen in the future if a position is revisited or reclassified.
and that I understand that, I do.
So I'm gonna try to work up
Considering
language that will serve both of us.
Yeah, considering the structure of the department, and, you know, where things are going, I really have a hard time seeing how there would be any exempt administrative positions that would be eligible for the bargaining unit. I think, there's a distinct separation between the operation class and the administrative class, and a distinct separation between the exempt and non-exempt. I know there's been a lot of work done on this issue. As I understand it, as has been explained to us, it appears that there's full support that those line BCs should be non-exempt. So we're still a little in the dark there what the holdup is or what's going on with that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, well,
it's-
that's a process that's
And-
ongoing and not my charge.
I understand, that's why I just want to be clear about it, as it currently stands, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but it would appear that the county's stance is that our line BCs are still exempt, and therefore would fall into that, meaning that they would be converted essentially to salary rather than even being paid straight time for their additional hours worked, which is current practice. If we were to ratify this, sign this was a done deal, essentially their next paycheck, because the county's position, unless it has changed and you guys are able or willing to formally say that, no, they are non-exempt and that is absolutely changing, that's what would happen to those folks. And that's like I said, a significant change in working conditions and in their wages, that I can't agree to. So that's where I put that at. I think we all understand the situation and the challenges that we're facing with that. I think language that at a bare minimum at this point memorializes what current practice is be reasonable at this point in time with the plea that we could finally get this thing resolved and ironed out the right way in the future. But at a minimum, we have to memorialize and protect status quo.
I think what we're going to do is have language that's not gonna hold up this contract and is gonna protect both of our positions.
Okay.
And we'll be able to get there.
Mind if we step out just a few minutes?
You want us to?
No, we'll step out just a few minutes. All right, so the Article 10, we talked about that. Still our position that language to simply say all bargaining unit members be paid in accordance with FLSA guidelines. That's all encompassing. That's completely off the table as far as that language. Then, like I said, we go back to at least capturing and ensuring the status quo is protected. I would also just again, so we're clear. I know the last session you had, I believe you may have mentioned keep in mind that the board did approve it across the board. That be applied as well. Just wanted to try to get something memorializing that took place. If for some reason this can't be put on the agenda,
I think it's on here,
is it? Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, second paragraph. employees per this agreement.
Okay. And the intent is that's, obviously our concern is that the scale happens and then. Okay.
So the way that is applied is,
Yes.
Push the scale 2% and then whatever the board does.
That's their intention.
Let's say
uh,
employees covered by this agreement, will that be considered, if we take it to our membership, they ratified, does that mean we're covered by this agreement? Because basically the scenario we get into, if you can't get it to, in front of the commissioners in time, we would then miss out on what you had spoke about last session.
Even if we don't get it to them, in my opinion, even if we don't get it to them before October 1st, it says whatever the board does as part of the budgetary process. So you will still get, we're gonna honor the contract, we're gonna honor it.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying, scenario is, we do our part, y'all have a hiccup or something along the way, and along the way, the board goes across the board gives everybody a COLA. Well, y'all haven't gotten it in front of the commissioners to sign it. They sign it after that fact, say, the end of October, they get around to us. Now we're out of that. You see?
No, you're not gonna get it.
Okay,
You won't get it.
No, we can clear
And it'll
it.
go back to October 1st.
Yeah.
okay. Just wanna make sure.
All right.
Bless you.
That's it.
Mhm. Can you provide any clarification on the battalion chief thing? Is it,
Well, I'm not really, have not been involved.
is,
What I think, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put language in that is not going to have you waive any rights having to do with the battalion chief, period. So.
well, that's
you
That's
do-
money too, though.
Yeah, and,
because
but I'm
you
just
can
not
say
gonna
you're not
put
waiving
anything
any
that says
rights.
that, right, so
Yeah.
that's, I mean, because I'm trying to do a contract and
Yes, sir.
not, I can't solve everything through the contract. I was thinking about just some language that would say something like, leave your language in 1001 in, but put language in that says it wouldn't apply in an instance where the county creates a position that's FLSA exempt.
So leave,
Bargaining unit members
sorry.
assigned to 24-hour shifts will be paid overtime at a rate of 1 1.5 times the regular rate of pay for hours worked over 106 hours during a 14-day work period. I would leave that in, but I would put in language somewhere that would say,
the second paragraph, and you talking about the language that we had provided last time?
yeah, I would say, except where the county creates an FLSA exempt position, because I have to allow for the possibility that could happen.
So that language, except in circumstances where the county creates an FLSA exempt position.
We go somewhere in there.
Well, then I was asking one question, is it the county's intention, I wanna make sure our interpretation is the same. We have existing battalion chiefs, and I need to know that it's not the county's intention to try to convert them to salary positions. I need to know that. And I understand the language and I appreciate it, and I want to say what you're offering is fair, and my interpretation of that is on point. But
Well, I'll tell you what my understanding is. My understanding is that there's no active initiative that is aimed at turning town chiefs into salary positions. I think until all of that gets sorted out, through all the various steps, we're gonna stay in our current status.
Nick, I'll tell you what,
you understand where I'm sitting at, right?
I know we had that, and we're not in, we're kind of in a tough spot as well. I will have conversations. Ms. Allen and I don't have an answer as to this particular issue. So, I know how to fix it.
I do too.
So,
Unfortunately, neither of us have the authority to fix it.
but all I can do is use all my goodwill. And bring it to fruition.
Mike, let's write it up.
Okay?
Is there a way to, my concern is if your goodwill isn't heard.
I understand.
And there is incredibly clear direction provided. Obviously, if we leave this room today, I need a digital copy for sure, because I gotta put this in front of the membership, ratification works. And we continue to work our tails off, getting this thing approved by the membership and get it ratified, document back to you guys, so you have hopefully time to put on the agenda. My concern would be that I'm expressing the intent, especially as it pertains to that specific item, and we ratify an agreement and then come back and that is some change. I don't know that legally I have.
Be up front, with your membership. This is the direction it's what we're trying to accomplish. I'm not
Right.
gonna sit here and promise you that I can.
No,
pull it off.
and I understand that.
And I'm not gonna go by myself, I'm gonna go with Eric, and I'm gonna go with Jason, because of strength in numbers, right? So, we're gonna make a reasonable presentation, a reasonable justification. And, work as hard as I can.
All right. Let's write it up, and that kind of verbal language that you expressed there as far as utilizing our proposal with the exception of created FLSA exempt positions, I think is palatable and would offer some appropriate assurances.
Okay. Duration, how many, what do you think about,
I got a really smart other comment for that one, but I'll sit on it.
I guess the last time we had an agreement, it was insurance, wages, insurance, and 3 additional articles.
I'm good with status quo, man. If you're good with that, if you kind of good with it, that's fine.
Okay.
can we put something there that says we won't bargain a contract for 5 years? Or can we put something in there that assures that they like you, they hang on to you? You have to come back to the table. You or Kristen, somebody's got to come back to the table.
You put it there that I won't negotiate another contract for Scampia County. I want to make a concession.
I want you to enjoy this as well. Okay, I did catch Kristen say she thought she could get it done, so obviously let's.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think it would be best for me to have the time to type this out and then have everyone review it. I'm not comfortable just trying to puzzle this up and have it distributed. So if you could give me some time, I can even try and have it finished tomorrow, but I don't think that it's good to try and rush it. I'm gonna need some more clarification too.
All right, well,
So here's the time crunch we're in, right?
Yeah.
It's your intention to try to get this thing on the agenda next week, is that fair to say?
If everything's set, right?
Okay, so, I mean, the reality is, if everything, we can get this thing done. Kristen, I understand your position, I'm sorry to put you in a bind, but it's, I've got to have, even with the requirements I have to work on in terms of application, as lenient as they become due to COVID and all that stuff, I still have got to have a set number of days
Right.
for the membership. And while COVID has allowed us to convert things to a more digital response rather than in person,
right,
and that expedites things quite a bit, I need the weekend, completely need the weekend to, I expected not being able to really receive a digital copy until late this afternoon or even tomorrow to be able to put that in front of the membership and a set vote up. I need the weekend entirely to allow that vote to take place and the membership to adequately review and make their vote, and allow us time to justify this thing to them.
Yeah.
And then my intent was to try to get with you Monday evening, Tuesday first thing, to say, here you go, and to give you as much time as humanly possible to get it worked out. That was my intent. I understand we're on a bind here, and if there's any way, if I need to stay down here later today to make it happen, that's fine. I don't.
It sounds to me like Kristen can have this done, her clarification's taken care of, and everyone's eyes on it, and still have it to you by 10 a.m.
In the morning.
And we're not changing the position, we're not taking anything back, and we're all on our table.
Here. I'm not gonna sign drafts like that. Are you available to come in tomorrow? Tomorrow? In the morning? Yep. You can get it done today, then yeah, I mean, that's
Well,
the best we can do.
if I was typing it up, you could have it by next month. And would have a hell of a lot of typos. But I guess, like Kristen wants to be, I mean, she wants to be sure she's getting.
Well, we all want to be sure.
Yeah, what
Absolutely.
we articulated today. So let's let her have that opportunity. If she takes her time, then, and she doesn't rush, then there'll be less of a risk that she's gonna get something wrong, and then we're gonna have to get it right, and then that's gonna actually delay significantly.
I had an appointment tomorrow at 9 a.m. That's part of where I don't need to move, but that's kind of where that was at. Very, very, very important.
Is it, so is it, well, tell me a different time frame. You
No,
want one
this-
tonight?
This is 150 people's lives. That's gonna be the priority. So let's get it done. Let's get it done.
Oh, wait, we have one more thing to discuss.
Yeah, the recruitment center would,
Wait, we need to-
no.
Go for Chief.
Nick Reese,
Sir?
good to sign on the lieutenants. It's like for the
Are
three for
we-
the beach.
Are we done with bargaining, or is this part of bargaining?
No, this isn't part of bargaining.
No, but I do have one more thing.
We have one more thing.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
bargaining
one more
purposes.
thing and then we
Okay.
can cut the tape.
And then we'll cut the tape. Recruitment incentive is something that we're doing countywide because of all the vacancies and the recruitment aspect. So we've talked with all of our unions to offer, it's a recruitment incentive for specified positions that have been identified in county administration. So firefighters would receive a $2,000 sign-on bonus basically, and they would get you would have to sign a 1-year contract with us in order to get that $2,000 sign-on, one lump sum as soon as they start.
Can we get that to our lieutenants?
Hold on a minute. Can I ask where that's being funded from?
Rescue plan.
Yeah.
All due respect to the work and effort that you guys have put forward, bust your tails and fix a lot of the issues that are here, that's crap. That's crap. The starting pay, what it's going to, that's a phenomenal adjustment. It really is. It's an outstanding step. And it makes that position very competitive. It absolutely does. I think it's a slap in the face to all of us who have gone through pure hell here with certain situations, and with the wage offer that's on the table, it very poorly encompasses the officer staff especially. It's a slap in the face is what it is, that we're gonna take that much money potentially from that grant money. We've been unsuccessful, and again, this is no indictment on this team here at the table for the efforts that you have all made, but we've been unsuccessful in trying to achieve any type of real tangible benefit associated with the pandemic and the massive amount of dollars that have been received by this county associated with that. We have in our very own backyard, the city of Pensacola, it was a 10 or 15% bonus. 15% bonus that they're paid for being emergency essential response. Absolutely no consideration or offer from our leadership downtown. We can't even get COVID leave for our staff who have no choice. You can't telework a fire. We have no choice but to come to work and respond to these things. It's not just us. EMS is in the exact same boat, and they're struggling with staffing. I try to say this I really do try to say this as respectfully as possible with the work that you have all done. And I ask that you try to see that from our side of the table there and how that's perceived. That is something that is negotiable, you're correct. That's something I think, this isn't something we're talking about putting in the contract. That's something that I guess would be like an MOU or something would be
It's just
Mm-hmm.
seeking.
an agreement.
It's an
I
agreement?
shoot you an email, but it's memorialized within our, obviously, the minutes and when you draft that up.
It's, obviously, I want to rebuild this department. I want things to turn around and us to start doing better. I want the morale to improve. We still have a lot of work to do that. I'm incredibly concerned with, especially a very recent conversation that took place discussing a reduction in staffing levels on our apparatus. So obviously I want to do things to improve that, to incentivize that, and let's hire people back. Let's look at trying to get more people in here because we need to grow and we need to expand. We need additional companies on the road. We have several places that need to be dual staffed. There's a lot of work to be done. So I don't want to stand in the way of that by any means, but I absolutely, it must be stated that I can assure you to the entire officer staff that leads the firefighters every day on the streets, it is a slap in the face, pure slap in the face. And I feel like you all can empathize with that position. I wish that was shared upstairs. So, I guess whenever do you have that agreement ready, or are you just throwing it out there for us to?
No, it's not an agreement, it's a county policy
It's
that
just-
we're
it's
adding
just
into the
happening.
HR policies and procedures.
It's just happening. How much has been, I guess, kind of allocated to be utilized for something like that? I mean, surely there's gotta be a cap associated with it, right?
Yeah, the cap is, I think we're gonna revisit it in about 6 months to see where we are, see the successful, not be successful. I know
Sure.
Corrections has been doing it, they've had, some success. They've also had quite a few that didn't make it through the academy or for whatever reason. They've had to pay them back.
They're in a tough spot too. They're hurting bad too.
Absolutely.
Most divisions are.
I think say most countywide departments
Yes, sir.
are down.
And you know, you come with your background and your history here, I feel like you especially would definitely understand what I'm saying. And
Yeah, I understand your viewpoint, and I respect you.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry going on a tangent about it, but thanks.
Chief, you were saying about the lieutenants?
That was our.
Hmm.